Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we're going to talk about arrays and what they are. You might be thinking, why do you have Google Drawing open, Mr. Storm? That's a weird way to start a video about programming. Well, it's because we need to understand what an array is, and the best way to do that is to kind of visualize some concepts here. Let me grab my box here. Okay, so when we were talking about variables, we were talking about creating a box like that. Let's turn the shading off. Creating a box that looks kind of like this and then putting a label on it. So calling this, I don't know, name. And then inside the box, we can put some data, right? So I can put like, actually let's put the name label up here. That's going to help better. That's going to help our metaphor a little bit easier. Let's see, text. So this box, we're going to call it name. And then inside the box, we'll put the name, David, right? So this variable called name holds one piece of data, called, with the value of David, right? This is a string. So let me go ahead and put quotes around it so we can be sure we know what type of data we're storing. Now that's all fine and dandy, but what if I had multiple names that I wanted to enter, right? What if instead of asking one person, I'm at a birthday party and I'm asking everyone their name and I want to store all of their names, right? Well, in order to do that with what we already know, I would have to create a bunch of these boxes and have like name 1, name 2, name 3, name 4, and I have to do it that way. And that's kind of inefficient. That doesn't really work. So what about if I could create basically a bunch of these boxes all together? So let's put some here and just kind of put them together like this, right? So I have, let's say, 5 names. And instead of David, we have Charlene. That's probably not even how you spell Charlene. That's definitely not how you spell Charlene now that I'm looking at it. We have, I don't know, Amber. Hey, that's my wife's name. And we could have Bob. And we can have, throwing my mouse everywhere. Let's say Jesse. So, we need to give it a name as well. So instead of creating one box that we can put a name in, we've created a series of boxes and we've called it names, plural, and we can put a bunch of names in it. This up here is a variable. Down here, what we've built is essentially an array. An array is just a series of variables, all of the same type, stored in the same object. Okay, so our arrays can be as long as we want them to be. In this context, our array is 5 indexes. Okay, now these individual boxes, they're called indexes. So there are 5 indexes in the array. Now, here's where it gets a tad bit confusing. All of these indexes have a number associated with them. The first index is actually index 0. The second is actually index 1, so on and so forth. So these indexes all have a specific name. So if I wanted to access, let's say, Bob here, instead of typing out, let me grab another text box. If I wanted to access Bob, I would access Bob by activating the names in our array, which exists. And then inside these brackets, I would say 3. Because Bob is in the 3rd index, or it's in the index 3. Even though it's in the 4th index in our visualization here, It's in the index 3 position because we always start with the first index at 0. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, okay, this is great, but why do we care? I can just create 5 variables, right? Well, the nice thing is, with an array, we can do all kinds of stuff. We can sort the array. We can pull items out of the array individually. We can randomize the array. We can pull a random index out of the array, which is what we're going to do this week. Arrays are really helpful for organizing our content. Remember, they all have to be the same data type. So in this example, we're using strings. We can create an array of ints. We can create an array of doubles or floats. We can create an array of Boolean values if we want, just as long as all the data is of the same type. Okay, now let's talk about how to actually do this. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to fix my brackets here so that I can keep myself sane. So here's how we would create an array. Let's change the hello world up here. Array practice. So if I want to create a new array, I have to indicate what type of data I want to store inside that array. So let's just go with a string for now. So this is going to be a string array. Now, inside the string array, I want to store some data, but first I have to give it a name. Arrays are just like variables. So I have to indicate the type of data, and then I have to give it a name. For this, I'll say months. Now, arrays generally have a plural name, meaning because there are multiple things inside of this object, when I name it, instead of saying month, I'm going to say months. That's, again, that's not, your computer's not going to throw an error. Your compiler's not going to get mad at you if you don't do that. It's just general good practice for programming. All right, now, there's one thing that I forgot. With the string array, we want to indicate that it's an array by putting this open and close square bracket, just like that, after the type of data. All right, that will tell our compiler that this is actually an array instead of just a string. Now, inside of the array, or to create data, we need brackets, just like these here and those there. Basically, these brackets are whenever we're going to create a bunch of information that's going to go inside of one thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the months of the year inside these brackets. And I'm going to do the abbreviations of them so that I'm not typing all day. And notice when I got to the end of the line, it just wrapped around. Oh. Okay, so that's essentially how you create an array of strings. All of the data is in between these brackets here. And because they're strings, they have the double quotes around them. And each index is separated by a comma. So right now, as I record this video, it is September. So if we take a look at September, let's figure out what index September lives inside. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So September is in index 8. Even though it's the 9th month of the year, it's in index 8 because January is in index 0. Remember, we always start with the index 0. Someone's calling me. Okay. It was my watch reminding me that the Mandalorian Season 2 trailer has come out. And if my watch doesn't think I've already watched it, it's crazy. Okay. So this is how we would create an array of the months of the year, right? Now, If I wanted to actually use this data in some way, I could do something like this. Console dot write line. And then I could put out months, and inside the brackets, I can indicate the specific index that I want to put out. So for example, we'll put out September. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Sep. There we go. So again, I called the proper index. Now, here's the fun part. We could do math with our indexes, right? So we can say, you know, well, okay, here's the best way to explain it. This is literally just a number, right? So we can subtract from this number, add to this number. We can say in 3 months it will be months plus 3. And it would give us the index inside of that it would solve that operation and then give us that index from that operation. So that's one thing we can do. Now, let's say we wanted to find a piece of data that exists inside the array. Maybe we don't want to call it by an index. Well, there's a function for that. We can do that. Let's say we wanted to count how many indexes there are in an array. Well, we can do that. So there are a lot of things we can do with arrays. Now, for our purposes for this lesson, we don't really need to get too far into more complicated concepts than what we have here. If you can just create an array and then access the proper index from that array, then you'll know everything you need in order to complete this assignment after you watch the next video, which is the random lesson. Random is going to take this concept of creating an array and supercharge it and allow us to do something really cool with it. So I will see you in the next video when we talk about random.